when it comes to the knowing framework on the brand side. So looking at knowing the brand, there's 3 questions that I really encourage people to move through as they're doing this work to really know who they are. First, who was I? What are the core memories and experiences that I had in childhood that shape who am I today? And so an example of that, this is an exercise that I've moved people through both in speaking and also on podcasts, is identifying one of your first and earliest memories. What happened? And like even close your eyes and envision, where was I? Who was I with? What feelings did I have or not have? You know, because as an adult, we can look back and say, oh, I had this really potentially negative experience and I have zero emotion tied to it. That's very odd. You know what I mean? It probably means that maybe that experience has been so shoved down and we're so disassociated from it that perhaps there's some work that needs to be done to bring back the human component to that child that's you, that frankly is still stuck at that age. Because when we have something traumatic happen and we don't move through that tunnel, that's the emotional tunnel, we get stuck there at that age in terms of mental development. And so that's not all of our parts. That's just an aspect of who we are gets stuck then. So who was I? That's the first question. Identifying a core memory. And then who am I? How does that core memory show up today to inform a mindset that I now have? So an example of this is when I was 3 years old, my knee was causing me a lot of pain and I was crying a lot and just grumpy and having bad attitude. And I got spanked. And then I mentioned earlier that a mindset that I had today is don't show negative emotions. So I would live as kind of this perfect, happy-go-lucky person because I associated being vulnerable with pain. And so now in terms of my ideal, so the third question is, well, who do I want to be? So now let adult Christine decide who I want to be rather than just acting in default behavior to child Christine going through that pain as a 3-year-old child. So now, well, who I want to be? Well, I want to have strong relationships that are emotionally connected. And frankly, I have to be able to present myself in every regard in order to have that. Therefore, I want to be vulnerable in relationships. And so now that's a whole story, but not just a whole story, it's also a core value of mine. I really care about emotional intelligence and bringing that into the business, and that informs how my employees interact with each other, how my employees interact with myself, how they show up at work. It also informs the clients that we work with. I just learned another valuable lesson today that it also informs the vendors we select. So this aspect of emotional intelligence, because of those series of events, now is a core value. So if I don't do the work to go back and really understand the why, I'm going to have a harder time articulating the meaning of the value itself. And once I actually tell people, hey, this is the core value of mine and this is why, well, gee whiz, they're probably going to be a lot more on my team in terms of embodying those values than just, we care about emotional intelligence. It's like, okay, well, so does everybody else. My favorite value that a lot of brands tout is integrity. It's like, okay, I'm not going to work with someone who's not integrous. Everyone says that. But your why is what differentiates you and what really allows for people to actually remember. You know, it's the story behind that will elicit a remembrance of sorts. So those are just 3 questions. And obviously you can go super deep in each vertical thereof, but there's a lot there to unpack. I'm still doing the work today. You know, I started it 3.5 years ago when I first kind of developed this framework. And it's really fun, Patrick. You know, each one of us is really, really special. And I think that we get so busy doing, we don't spend enough time being with who we were created to be in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the attractive character is like exposing the struggles that we had and not just like how the end of the journey, right? People aren't at the end of their journey, and they maybe, if you want to help somebody overcome what you overcame, you have to share the struggles so that they can understand that you've been through it and you don't have to show up as a perfect person.
Oh, I love that. That is so good. And that's a hallmark of a good story, is the struggle. You think of Lord of the Rings, right? Like you're not just going to read to the end. You feel so emotionally connected with Frodo and Sam and the camaraderie that they share through the hard times. And I think that that's just such a beautiful example of what it actually does with our audience, with our customers, when we do open up, they feel emotionally compelled to us. Somebody just reached out to me yesterday and he commented on, now it was with a business opportunity. I'd met him 2 years ago and he finally had, it was finally time to do business. And he was like, by the way, I've been following you on LinkedIn and I really love what you're posting. And I bet you there are many other people that he could have thought of, but it's the sharing of my story along the way that elicited the recollection. And also now it's the right time to do business. So y'all get to posting your stories and sharing them, but first you got to know it.